we're ready to go.
All right. So the first item are minutes of the Recreation, Sports and Culture Standing Committee meeting held on Monday, June 14th, and the recommendation is that the committee approve those minutes.
Unanimous.
Item 2 is a report of the General Manager, Parks, Recreation and Cultural Services related to fly fishing at LaFarge Lake, and the recommendation is that the committee receive the report for information.
Second.
Councillor Lynch.
I just wanted to thank you for going through all this work. It was raised as a much bigger concern than apparently our staff have been able to identify. But thank you for looking into it, and I will ensure that if they contact me, I will let them contact you and provide you with the information that they say was there.
We look forward to speaking with any citizens around this matter. We do have a very brief overview from Lenny England, our manager of urban forestry and natural areas, who can also illustrate the signage that we'll have available if the chair is interested.
Absolutely. Mr. England.
Come up then, Carol. All right. Not much to report other than what you received in the brief information report. I just brought along this hard copy of the signs that are going to be installed within the next week in both Town Centre Park and Como Lake Park. And the second to last bullet point there is the one that's intended to address the issue that's come up. And as we said in the report, we've been watching for it, and it's we have seen it on one occasion, so it's probably something that's limited to a very few amount of fishermen at the lake. And the Freshwater Fisheries Society, in their surveys, they're finding lots and lots of fly fishermen at LaFarge Lake. They're just not fishing in this area in general, but there have been a couple people. So hopefully, through continued one-on-one communications and the signage that will be up at the lakes, we will be able to alleviate this issue.
Questions?
Just curious, and if I missed this, when do you anticipate the signage going up?
The signs are being produced as we speak, so for sure by early next week they'll be up in the park.
Thank you. I'm sure they'll make a few people happy. Thank you.
Yeah, there's some old signage that needs to be replaced.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. England. Seeing no further questions on this, all in favor of receiving? It's unanimous.
Item 3 is report of General Manager, Parks, Recreation and Culture Services related to the off-leash strategy for the city centre area, Phase 2. And I believe staff have a presentation related to this. The recommendation is that Council direct staff to consult further with city centre citizens on the following 3 proposed locations for off-leash sites in the city centre area: A, Glen Park; B, northwest corner of Town Centre Park; and C, trail system along west side of Coquitlam River. I believe Mr. Niles has a presentation related to this.
Mr. Niles?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd just like to touch on some of the highlights of the report. Before doing that, I just wanted to bring to your attention that Councillor Berenbaum with the RCMP is also with us this afternoon. And Councillor Berenbaum has been one of our advisory committee who's been working with staff to look at some of the sites that have been shortlisted as potential sites. And he's provided some valuable input with regards to the Glen Park site, and has provided input to staff suggesting that there could be some positive attributes to introducing more people into a section of Glen Park for off-leash and just for overall safety for the park. So we're glad that he can join us this afternoon.
And thank you for attending today, Constable.
Okay. So committee will recall back in February we brought an information report to you to say that we are going to be launching an off-leash park process for the city centre area. On the screen you can see the area that we're consulting with the public on right now extends from the Port Moody boundary north of Barnett Highway over to the Coquitlam River, and it extends as far north as David Avenue. So we've been putting our focus on potential locations within the city center planning area. The next slide. We're currently at about the third box in the process. Part of the process is staff have been working with some citizens on an advisory committee. Some of those citizens involve members of the CFSA, also a resident who lives in the town center area who appeared before council in November of 2008 with some suggested locations for staff consideration for off-leash areas. And we've also we've had someone with the Coquitlam River Watch Society has been providing input to staff on some of the locations we've looked at. We had an open house in late May where we had about 47 people attended and started giving us input on 6 locations. Based on the input we've received through that process, as well as some input we've received through our webpage and just others who are following the process, we've shortlisted 6 potential sites down to 3 sites. We'll just kind of explain a little bit those 3 sites, the relative advantages and disadvantages of those. This just kind of talks about the web discussion. You can go to the next slide, please, Carrie. So some of the sites that appear to be most preferred by the people we've heard of so far. The first is Glen Park, the northeast corner. And this area would be about 12,000 square meters. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 3 acres. So it's a pretty good site. It would be a combination of some open grass area, but as well as creating some new bark mulch or crushed gravel trails within the forest area. We'd also have to do some selective raising and thinning of trees to make it a safe environment. The site would be integrated into the overall master plan for Glen Park, which is currently in process. It would bring a lot of people into the park, which could be a positive thing. Next slide, please. Another potential location, which is now over in Town Center Park, is there's a piece of land which is currently not programmed at the northwest section of the park. It's just above the new parking lot. It's turf and some medium-sized trees in there right now. It could be constructed for about $47,000 to $50,000. There's lots of ample parking on site. Could be constructed this fall. The downsides, it's very small. It wouldn't be large enough, we don't think, to adequately accommodate both large and small dog areas. So we could bring that one online quicker than Glen Park and at less cost, but it could be inundated with too much usage. Also, its location in Town Center Park, it would really serve, I think, people that are living in the David Avenue area and north. It wouldn't serve people that are a little bit further south in the plan area, as well as Glen Park would. Next slide. The third potential site is the trail network, which is on the west side of Coquitlam River. This would be a different type of experience than either Glen Park or Town Center Park would provide, and that would be we would allow off-leash use, which currently happens, even though it's not provided for, but it currently happens along the river. But there could be some impacts to the river if dogs are not under care of their owners, going down into some of the off-channel habitat areas. Can also cause some conflicts with other users, cyclists and joggers. It is part of the Trans-Canada Trail Network. On a positive side, it's very cost-effective to implement. We would simply put the rules of etiquette and on park signage. So there are 3 of the 6 areas that our staff are suggesting we should consult further on over the summer before coming back. Why consult further? So far we've heard from about 50 people. The majority of those 50 respondents are dog owners, so they're very supportive of any kind of dog off-leash opportunities. Staff are suggesting that we should consult a little bit more and try to put steps in the process. So we'll also hear from people who are not necessarily dog owners and get their perspectives before we make a final decision on implementing dog off-leash opportunities in one or more of these areas. Finally, in terms of the budget that Council has approved is $80,000. It's outlined in the report, plus about $9,000 for operating costs. In terms of these sites, Town Centre Park and Coquitlam River Park could certainly be delivered well within that budget envelope. The Glen Park site, right now, it's about $80,000 plus contingency. So if Glen Park is the favored site, staff, before going ahead, would need to refine that plan, maybe phase it a little bit, potentially reduce the overall size of the off-leash area so it could be delivered within the approved budget. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. We have a few. Linda?
Thank you. With respect to Glen Park, I'm glad to see this here for safety reasons, because I've received a number of emails from nearby residents, which I forwarded on to Parks and Rec. But my question is, when is the planning process beginning for the revitalization of Glen Park?
The planning process has started. There's been one meeting a few weeks ago with a project advisory group that included some residents and stakeholder groups. There is going to be another meeting, though, scheduled over the summer months and then into the fall. So the process has started, but I think it's not likely going to conclude until early 2011.
So this process will be concluded before that, correct?
The off-leash process?
Yeah.
Yes, we would be coming back to Council in the fall to inform you on what we've heard from the public on these three shortlisted sites.
Right. I mean, I like this option probably the best of all three. It's just I question whether we should be going ahead with something like this there when the other Glen Park process isn't completed. But that's my only concern. Thank you.
Okay.
Gary?
All right, thank you. Well, we've always got ourselves into trouble if we're not doing more consultation, so obviously it's a good idea for us to go ahead and do further consultation. I'm familiar with all these areas. I think that the Glen Park is the best option, and the report kind of reflects that as well. We are having some difficulties right now with off-leash in the Town Centre Park. It's one of my favorite places to go for a walk in the evenings, and every evening I'm there. There's some dogs that are off-leash, and people like to bring that to my attention, so I'll flag that just for staff to know that there is a problem there. And I think that until we actually get something like a Glen Park or something more suitable locally, it's kind of hard to enforce it because we can't tell people to go too far away. At least that's the problem we're having right now. So rather we're going to do more consultation, and I'm thinking we're going to come back and looking here. Glen Park is probably going to be the best one. So, and thank you for the work.
Thank you. Okay.
Well, being the doggy person, I walk my dogs in all kinds of places. My favorite is Eagle Ridge behind Scott Creek Middle, because you can go right up to Lansdowne, and then if you're really energetic, you can go higher. Obviously, lately I haven't been. But I think we've got to look at this in a more, I mean, nobody loves doggies more than I do, I'm sure, but we've got some expensive property here. We're dealing with big, expensive property on these choices. And the northwest corner of Town Centre Park, I don't believe we're finished with Town Centre Park yet. I believe Town Centre Park can be more. I mean, we've always talked about having a tournament site and stuff like that. So I think looking at the financial implications of all this, Town Centre Park would be out for me. Glen Park is actually going to be the park that's in the middle of our downtown core. And as Councillor Reamer mentioned, we haven't even begun to look at all the things that we should be doing with that. And the trail system along the river, where everybody's using it off-leash now anyhow. I don't go there because I have one that's blind and deaf and not the brightest bulb on the tree. So mine have to stay on leash. But I just don't think we're ready to go. And if we were ready to do anything, and if it was necessary, my choice would be to use the Coquitlam River and give it a 6-month trial and see what happens. But more importantly than all that, folks, the people that you have to really cater to in this are the people who are living in the apartments and the condos, which is going to be the downtown core. So at some time, maybe a trail within Glen Park or around Glen Park may be the ultimate thing that we go for. But I think we're just too soon now to be expending this kind of dollars in these financial times to be doing it. And I agree with Councillor Reamer, and I believe the chair for sure, that we're just a bit premature to be looking at spending a lot of money in the downtown core until we're just a little bit further along. So if this committee decides it absolutely has to have a legal off-leash, because everybody's illegally off-leash now, I would like to see signage and maybe some fencing where you do not want them going into the river, however the environmental issues are dealt with. And just try a 6-month period, and that will get us into the spring, and hopefully we'll be more into the Glen Park planning by that time. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Niles, are we able to hear from the constable today on the crime reduction ideas or the implications here for Glen Park?
Councillor Berenbaum?
Welcome.
Oh, thank you. I didn't prepare a formal presentation, so I could give you some of the experience that I've had through the process so far and then answer questions for you if that brings up anything specific. I went through a crime prevention through environmental design study on the new Glen Elementary School, and one of the problems that I identified with the school site, although the new school is fantastic, and I think the design of it has really focused on crime prevention through environmental design. The green space directly behind the school posed a lot of concern to me. There was evidence on the fence of people climbing over the fence and it was broken down. And we dealt with 3 files this year since the school was completed of people misusing the back of the school area there. In alarming ways that we just would not want for the kids at the school. So I had initially become involved through the master planning process for Glen Park to see some positive change to that space right behind the school. And the first thought that came to my mind when I went to meet with them was an off-leash dog park, because it would serve one of the main pillars of crime prevention through environmental design, and that's drawing legitimate users into your space, because legitimate users tend to force out illegitimate users. Although I'm completely sensitive to the financial situation, and that is a good chunk of money to do it, the experience probably and the expertise probably exists to create a plan for the site. And I have no planning experience whatsoever, so I would defer it obviously to them, but to create a plan for the off-leash site that would integrate into the large-scale revitalization plan for the entire park, leaving that space that seems popular, sort of doing it in stages, basically. My goal would be to see a drastic increase in the number of people, citizens, walking their dogs in that area throughout the day and maybe even into the evening hours to try and prevent people from either climbing up onto the school. There's some design issues that I think the school is going to take up with the School District 43 in terms of access to the roof of the school. And the whole thing, I think, would serve to prevent vandalism to the school, any camping in the back area of the school. So that was my interest in the space. Does that assist in some way?
Yeah, that's very good. And I'm wondering if you're just preparing yourself for a career in politics with the terms misuse of the back of the school. That was very good.
I can provide you as many details about that misuse as you would like, but suffice it to say, I know that none of you would want to see what we saw there happen again. So,
yeah. Any question? Oh, Selena?
Yeah. I thank you very much for your comments, because it actually does help in terms of the thinking and priorities. Because I'm thinking if we were to act and take care of the park and use some of these principles, particularly the side that's closest to the school first, if we were to phase it in, then that would reduce policing costs, which saves taxpayer dollars. So it's one of those ones where I think we kill several birds. Sorry, May, I don't mean to kill birds, but we'll kill several birds with one stone. So it is very helpful to hear, and I'd like to hear, what phasing in would look like, because $80,000 does feel rich in these times. But if there was a way to do 3 phases, for example, where we spend 25 at a time, I'm comfortable at this point actually opening up the river corridor for official on off-leash, only because a perfect example is Friday night. I rode my bike through Mundy Park 7 o'clock at night, and I saw 1 heron, 1 snake, and 5 off-leash dogs. And it was not off-leash hours. So I'm not sure that when you actually legitimize it, I actually think it makes it worse, and you have potential for more run-ins. So I would actually like to see us address some of the very concerns that you've raised, and it just makes for a stronger case. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So, seeing, was there anything further, Mr. Niles?
I have no other information.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So the officer brings up lots of good points, and I mean, we want to make it off-leash for big nasty dogs just along the back of the school. But I don't know if you're looking for a solution, if you're being pressed for a solution right now. The expenditure of $80,000 is a lot of money to do until we have a big master park plan. But one thing I'd like to know, and I know you have mentioned this, is I think perhaps it's time to get some extra bylaw enforcement out there. We have ATVs that allow our bylaw guys to go through the parks, and I think we need to start ticketing because it's long past time. We had a lot of people at the election with your suggestion of putting that on as a referendum item, and I think we need to start ticketing this 20% of the people that costs us all the money. Most people obey signs, but as Barry knows, he rides through there, and it's unfair to everybody. So maybe through your committee you could look for some kind of extra enforcement time too.
It's an excellent idea, and that's one we'll pursue. This is just to receive this report, and it's information only.
It's actually...
Oh, okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous.
That concludes the items on the regular agenda.
So now, I guess we'll move into closed in the next room.
Yes.
So,
5 minutes.
Adjourn?
So moved.
We're adjourned.